In this lecture, we'll cover Talcott Parsons and the theories given by him. He was an American sociologist and he is very famous for his theory of social action and structural functionalism. Let us see what books he wrote. Here is a list of 3 books that he wrote: The Structure of Social Action, The Social System, The Action Theory, and The Human Condition. So his main focus was on theoretical work. He gave the theory of action, which was influenced by Kant's critical philosophy. He said that every action is a product of interaction of dynamic and controlling forces. For example, when you are sitting in a class, your action is a product of the interaction that you are having. With who? The interaction that you have with your teacher, the interaction you have with the environment, the interaction you have with your fellow students, your friends. So this is how every action is determined. This is how it is made up of. Now, what is social action? He said that there are choices between alternative values. And he said that the actions that an individual performs, they must be partially free. So, how should an ideal action be? An ideal social action should be voluntary, oriented towards someone or something, and subject to guidance by norms. That means it should be appropriate. It should be given a thumbs up by the society that yes, you are adhering to the norms. And motive or intention is a very important part of this action. So, he continues to say that actor is not independent, but he is dependent. He is dependent on what? Dependent upon the social values, because if you do not adhere to those guidelines, those values and norms, then your social action will not be for the benefit of the society. Okay? It will be disregarded. Therefore, it is important that it is adhered with norms and social values. Now coming to the elements of social action. What are some of the elements? So in order to perform a social action, there is a need of an actor, a situation, and some kind of motivation. Now these motivations can be aesthetic, cognitive, or evaluative. When these 3 combine, they make value theory, and then they determine social action. That means they determine what kind of social action will be performed, because motivation is very important element in social action. Now let us study about ego and alter. So the one who speaks or performs the social action is called ego. That means the teacher, when she is delivering a lecture, she is speaking, she is performing the social action. So she is ego. And the one who receives or takes the message, takes the information, is called alter ego. Now this interaction between the two, say example, teacher and the student, this is at a very micro level, okay? And this is how the social system takes place. This is how it begins. So this at the micro level is the most elementary form where there is an interaction between ego and alter ego. Coming to the types of social action. Now there are 3 types of social action. Instrumental, that means doing something in order to achieve a goal. So if you study for long hours, you will get good marks. So there is an instrumental social action. Second, expressive social action. This action you do in order to gain some kind of satisfaction. So it can be moral, like giving a seat to an elderly person when you are traveling. Third is moral action, deciding what is fair or what is wrong on the basis of moral or ethical grounds. So we all have our ethical principles. So for example, I believe that cheating is wrong. So if I am sitting in an exam and I do not know the answer, now I have to perform a social action. Do I have to cheat or do I not have to cheat and give myself the satisfaction of sticking by my moral values? So this is what is moral social action. Coming to the next concept of pattern variable. Okay, so pattern variables are what? He said that choices and forms are categorized, because whenever you are performing a social action, you have a lot of choices. You have a lot of possible decisions that you can do. For example, in an exam, I can cheat, or I can not cheat, or I can run away from the exam. I have many options. So, this dilemma that I have, that do I need to cheat or should I not cheat? This dilemma is something that I need to come out of. This is something that will stop me from doing a social action. So I need to make a decision, and only then, when the dilemma is over, I will be able to fulfill this social action. So, pattern variables, that means there are so many choices. These provide a means of describing and classifying institutions. So, when we're talking about institutions and social relations, it is on a bigger level, it is on a macro level. The alternatives that I have as a student who is giving exam is I can either cheat, I can not cheat, or I can run away from the exam. So this is what this gives me, a classification, whether I have to stick to my values, whether I have to follow the norms of the society, or whether I have to disregard all of them and think about my selfish reasons and pass this exam. And when it is on a macro level, you have to take into consideration the institutions, social relations, values, norms that are associated with them. That means if you are in a holy matrimony, you cannot cheat on your partner. Why? Because the institution of marriage, the institution of law, it says that it is a felony. It is not the right thing to do. So what are these pattern variables? There are 5 types of pattern variables. First you have a choice of affective neutrality versus affectivity. That means the amount of appropriate or expected emotion in any interaction. For example, if your teacher is talking about a sensitive issue in the class and you start crying very loudly, so you have to make the decision. Is it okay to cry this loudly? Is it okay to be so hypersensitive? Or yes, the topic is so that my being so sensitive is justified. So you have to make a choice. Second choice is collectivity or self. That means, do you choose shared interest or do you become selfish and focus on your self interest? Third, particularism versus universalism. That means, whom to consider. When you are performing a social action, who do you have to give advantage to? Therefore, that means if you are an IAS officer, are you going to give advantage to your relatives? This is an example of particularism, that is playing favorites. Next is diffuseness or specificity. There is a range of obligation which are involved with every relationship. So, do you follow those obligations or do you just disregard them? That means, as a student, there is an ethical principle. There is a line that you have to maintain in the relationship. Only then the relationship can go on. So, do you choose to keep with the regard that line or do you disregard it? Next is ascription or achievement. That means ascribed status is what we get on the basis of the place or the family where we are born into. And achieved is what we gain on the basis of our merit. Example, do you pay respect to a priest because of the virtue of him being a priest or because of the virtue of him being born in a Brahmin family? Another example, paying respect to a soldier when he is walking by. So, we pay respect to a soldier because he has achieved something. He deserves that respect. So, there is a differentiation between those two. Now, coming to the very important AGIL model, which was asked in this year's question paper also. AGIL model is what? One of the first open system theories of organizations. It describes the functional imperatives to all social systems. It says that every social system is based on these functions. There are 4 functions and they should be performed in order for the social system to sustain, to survive or to continue. So what are these 4 functions? First is the function of adaptation. A system must be able to cope with external situations and it should adapt to the environment or the environment should be adapted according to the needs. Second is goal attainment. We should define our goals and we should achieve our goals. This is very important for a social system to continue. Integration, regular interrelationship, and this interrelationship should be regulated. That means there should be an interrelationship between adaptation, goal attainment, and latency also. So, what is latency? Latency is nothing but motivation and to renew motivation of the individuals and also of the cultural patterns according to the need of the society. Now, coming to the last topic here, AGIL in practice. How can we practice this AGIL model in the social system? Adaptation. Adaptation is adjusting to the external world. Okay, so even though we know that the society is moving very fast and the culture is changing, technology is changing, so what are we doing? Are we just giving up on it or are we trying to adapt? We are trying to adapt. Then coming to the next, goal orientation. So there is a personality system. What happens? Our desires are motivated. So we are the actors and our desires, they all have some kind of motivation. We have goal attainment and the goals are defined. The resources are also mobilized. For example, if the government decides that we are going to get the GDP of something this year, so what do? They lay a plan, the goals are defined, and the resources are mobilized. This is how goal attainment is done. Integration. Now, integration, all the components, all the parts, they come into integration with each other, and that is how the action is performed. This is social system. And cultural system, latency function. This is when the situations are defined in which the actor performs the action. Norms and values, they are provided which motivates the actor, and this is what is cultural system. So I hope you got this lecture. Let us do some questions quickly. Question number 1. Select the pair which does not find a room in the inventory of pattern variables. So we just did pattern variables, and if you look at option number A, quietism versus aggressive action, it is not there in any of the pattern variables. So answer will be option number A. Question number 2. According to Parsons, society is in moving equilibrium according to Parsons. We are choosing all of these things. We are coming out of the dilemma and choosing the functions on the basis of AGIL system and pattern variables to make the best decision, and it has to be on a repetitive mode so that the social system does not collapse and it is sustainable and it continues. So I hope you got this lecture. Thank you very much.